friends. This is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing, coming to you with my Sunday's Art of Truth for January the 30th. So today I am not really sure what I'm creating. I know I am creating around this idea of rest and being soulful, and I haven't exactly decided how I'm going to name this journal page, but I am working in a new journal, which I'll show you in just a second as soon as I unpile all of this stuff. So I've got my tear ruler to do some tearing on my paper. This is a stencil from SeanPetite.com, and I haven't decided which sentiment I'm going to be using, but I will be writing about just that concept of what it means to be still, to be soulful, to wait, to pause, to rest, to do all those things that help us to be able to make really good decisions, as well as they help us to take care of our bodies and our minds and our relationships and all of those things. So these are some of the stencils I pulled out. Have absolutely no idea what I'm going to use. This is a Sean Petite stencil called Paris Flourish 2. And then I've got this stencil, which I just kind of liked the bubbles, and you'll see why here in a second. And then this is one of my favorite stencils to just kind of add some accent with some black to the project. I like the numbers, so because they represent time and those kinds of concepts, years and history and all that. Numbers just always remind me of that. This is the image that we're creating around. So just this super cute little girl. But what I really liked about it is that see how her doll has just kind of been discarded down here on the ground. And I don't think that that's a negative thing. I think it speaks to me about kind of the whimsy and the soulfulness and the playfulness and the kind of the immediacy that children feel like they're very much in the moment. And so you can see that she's discarded her doll. She's in the, like, it looks like a garden shed. And then she's got her cat, and then she's got these bubbles. So she's just in a place of just, I'm sure she's very, very happy. And it really spoke to me. So we're going to use that image as the focal image. And then we've got a bunch of background papers as usual that I will be collaging on the base. So I'm going to set those aside. A while back, I experimented with putting some distress collage stuff on this rice paper, and so I think I'm going to use this to stamp out my sentiment or my word or whatever it is that I decide to do. I'm not exactly sure that's what I'm going to do, but I've got it in case I want to do that. I've got my sheet paper, and you've heard me talk about this before, so I'm going to be putting that in the background as well. And then this is my new art journal. So I made one where I actually hand stitched the signatures in, but the pages are too narrow. They're only about this wide on each side of the spine, and so they're just not big enough for me. So let me just turn this over so I can show you what the journal cover looks like. So I wanted something that would that's got some good heavy duty mixed media paper in it. So this is, I've never heard of this brand, but it's Bachmore. And it's a 98 pound, which is a really good weight for mixed media paper. So I did go ahead and glue 2 pages together. And what I like about this is I don't have to deal with that seam. I don't have to deal with that split page thing. And I think I'm going to like that. I put a piece of parchment paper behind here just to protect the page behind it. I did glue 2 pages together because I want, for one thing, it would be too bulky if I created on every single page in this book, because it's got, how many pages did I say it has? 100 pages, I think, if I remember correctly. So that's a lot of pages. So I've got my supplies. I've got my Liquitex fluid matte medium. I've got some alcohol in case I want to use that to kind of pull some stuff up. I've got my paper towels. I've got some super heavy gesso in case I want to do some stenciling with that. And again, I'm letting just the inspiration come as I go. So I've got my favorite paint, Golden Fluid, Raw Umber, my glazing medium, as you've seen before. And I've got 2 colors of paint. So I picked this Hauser Light Green, which is one of my favorite colors of green, and this Golden Straw. And so when you look at it up against this picture, I think it's going to be a really good mix. So I want to keep it really light. I always say that. I'm getting better at actually achieving that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and prepare some of my papers. I'm going to get them collaged on here, and then we'll come back and we will move on to the next step. Okay? So I'm just going to dry this really quick, and then we'll move on to the next step. It's always hard transitioning from real-time talk to voiceover, so I hope it goes fairly smoothly for you guys. So my camera did shut off for some reason. I was trying to leave in the collaging part, but I'm not sure what happened. Often I'm not used to having a mouse at my desk, because when I had my laptop, I just could reach up on the shelf and stop the camera and do what I needed to do, but I have to operate it with the mouse. So sometimes I forget and I set something on it and it stops the video, so my apologies there. So we're going to come in with some Liquitex gesso and just kind of push back some of that print, some of those images there. It just helps to kind of not solidify, to just make the whole collaging bit look a little bit more cohesive and not quite so bold, because we don't need all those dark words to be peeking through on the whole surface. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to come in also with my baby wipe and wipe up some of that as well, because I want that sheet paper especially to be able to peek through. And I mentioned my sheet paper before. It's just this really great motivational paper. It's actually called She Decided, and it's from SeanPetite.com subscriber library. So if you want to check her out, you can certainly do that at SeanPetite.com. So we're dry now again, and we're going to go ahead and put a layer of paint on, I believe, is the next step. In between filming and doing the voiceover, I did lay down and take a nap, so now I need to kind of get back up to speed. So just trying to figure out what stencils I actually wanted to use there. I did change my mind on some things as I went along here, but hopefully it won't be too abrupt for you as you watch. So this is that Deco Art Americana paint it's called Golden Straw, and it's one of my favorite colors from Deco Art. So I'm going to be applying a whole layer here, and then we're going to do what's called reverse stenciling, which is where you lay the stencil down on a fairly thick coat of paint here, and it's going to pick up the paint from the stencil part. So, and that will make more sense here as you watch. Just trying to get a little bit of paint in there on the where the wires go, so it's not completely white. So I did change my mind and got out my large rose stencil, because I just felt like I needed a bigger pattern there, so that and something that was a little bit more clustered together, I guess, is what I was kind of looking for in the moment. It often doesn't turn out the first try the way that we think it's going to. At least that's been my experience. So I'm not really impressed with how that's pulling up, and so I did get out my alcohol and I sprayed it directly through the stencil onto the page, and then using my baby wipe to wipe that up. That was a little bit better result, so I'm going to go back over to the other side as well. It did sort of clean off my stencil too. I'm not great about cleaning my stencils. I make sure that they don't have like heavy gesso or anything left on them, or modeling paste, because that will ruin them, but the paint doesn't really bother me for the most part. So just going to continue and kind of hop around and take that off in various places, and you can see there that the script and things in the music paper is showing through. I wish I had held that up for you. My apologies for that. The process was a little bit rough. My mixed media doesn't usually have I usually have inspiration, but doesn't necessarily mean I have an image in my head. So I struggle a little bit more with kind of fluid movement and things happening kind of sequentially in a way that makes sense for somebody watching me. So the voiceover is actually a good thing, and being able to speed up the video and kind of remove my voice from this part so that you guys can focus on what I'm actually doing. So here I'm coming in with my numbers jumbled stencil from SeanPetite.com as well, and just applying some of those numbers here and there around the page. Black is a very neutralizing color. It adds a pop to your art that no other color really can do in quite the same way. Black and white do that equally well. So what I'm doing here is I wanted to kind of rub off a little bit of that. The smudging was a little bit unexpected, but in the end you don't see it anyway. And so I just kind of dabbed off some of that alcohol off the baby wipes so that it wasn't quite so heavy, and I could just kind of get that scratchy look, like the numbers are really aged, rather than get the black smudging that you see there on the left hand side. And then I'm coming in with the, I believe this is the Paris Flourish stencil from Sean Petit, and I'm coming in again with the same, this is black archival ink. I forgot to mention that, you guys. Archival ink will not reactivate with any wet medium, water, paint, anything. It's permanent once it goes down. So you will notice, as you did on the numbers, that because I had that alcohol in hand, I was able to remove some of it, but I would never have been able to remove it all, because it is a permanent ink, which is really great in mixed media. I also use Vintage Photo archival ink in both my mixed media and my art journaling. So my junk journal making, excuse me. Again, just woke up from a little bit of a nap. The doctors finally put me on some great stuff for my illness, so the steroids are knocking me down. Like, they give me a terrible headache, so I had to go lay down. I just could not function. So hopefully I'm getting to the end of that. I'm feeling a lot better. So thank you for all of your good thoughts and your prayers. I really appreciate it. It's been a long haul. Monday it would have been 2 weeks, so I'm at 12 days of being sick, so it's getting old. So I'm now going to come in with my Liquitex heavy gesso, super heavy gesso actually. It's very, very thick. And here I'm kind of tossing around what stencil I want to use. It was feeling like, no, I didn't want to come in with that one again, but wasn't really sure what I wanted to do either. And the purpose for the gesso is just to bring in a little bit more of a three-dimensional texture rather than the visual texture that you're seeing with that black inking with the stencils. So I decided to go ahead and try the number stencil again. And again, that's called Numbers Jumbled, and all of the supplies will be linked over on the blog, and a link to the blog will be in the description box so you can check it out. As well as I put a lot of close-up photos of my projects over on the blog that I don't necessarily put on Facebook or here on the video. So just trying to find a brush, and then I decided, I was going to go with my makeup sponge. It's been a while since I've used gesso in this way, so I kind of got a little bit turned around there, but got right back on track. So I'm just applying those numbers again, just here and there around the page, kind of spreading it out. The upper left-hand corner, I hop down to the lower right-hand corner there, or not the lower right, the middle, I guess, as far as it's the lower right-hand corner of the stencil, but you see what I mean. And the nice thing about the super heavy gesso is it gives that texture, but it's not super thick, and it doesn't take long for it to dry. And it's also pretty imperfect. It's not an exact impression of the stencil design, which lends itself to kind of a more loose and less predictable kind of result, which in this case I didn't mind. I really loved it. And there's some steps as we go on that I kind of wish I had skipped, because I would have liked to have had that white just be white. I believe it was the raw umber glaze that you're going to see me do here in a little bit, but I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get there. So just motioning there that I did make sure that was nice and dry. And then I'm reading the stencil here, and so I'm going to try to do that with you guys too, or let me go ahead. I'm going to grab it while you're watching here so that I can read it on the voiceover. I forgot that I had put that away before I sat down to actually do the voiceover, but it's really important for me to read it to you because there was a reason why I picked those words. And as I was doing the video in real time, I was talking about my sister and how we have reunited after 30-ish years, and I was looking for some words that would be good for this project. And I found that stencil, which is also another Sean Petit stencil. I'm having trouble finding it here though, guys, so I hope you don't mind if I keep looking. I'm not sure I don't know what I did with it. There's only so many places they can go in this binder. Oh, there they are. So I'll try to find a place that I can do that without interrupting what you're seeing here. So part of what it says is the part that I was referring to as I was doing the creating is there is so much I want to say. How can I express the feelings of peace that comes from being with you? Perhaps the secret of living well is not in having all the answers, but in pursuing unanswerable questions in good company. So that's kind of where my sister and I are at, just trying to ease into relationship, and I just thought that was so fitting. And so as you can see there, I did go ahead and add that stencil with the super heavy gesso, and then this tissue paper just came in the mail yesterday from Tiffany over at I never can remember that, a Bluebird Lane Creations. I won her 200 subscriber giveaway, and this tissue paper was the wrapping in the package, and it was just so sweet. And I looked at it and looked at it up against my focal image, and I'm like, this is perfect for this project. So I'm just tearing it up there and applying it here and there again with my this is my Liquitex fluid matte medium. And her package came just loaded with, oh my gosh, so many things, a lot of Tim Holtz products. I thought about doing kind of an unboxing, but I'm pretty much doing videos every day, and I just don't have a place to insert a video of that, but I am so, so grateful. So here is the step that I wish that I had skipped, or I had done something a little bit different. I almost always do a raw umber glaze, and I'm not sure why. I need to start exploring not doing the glaze and see what kind of different results I can get. But here we are again. So I did go ahead and do the glaze. And basically what the glaze does is it's gonna help that brown, that darker passage of color to adhere to some of the texture that's already on the surface. And it's going to create a kind of a grungy look. It ended up being beautiful in the end. I am not at all sorry about how it ended up, but it did give me some fits as I was going through this process, which I'll talk about as we continue to move through this. But here I'm just wiping it off with my baby wipe and then trying to come back in. That wasn't really working very well with my fingers, so just coming in with my baby wipe with a little bit of that mixture on it. And as a reminder, when I do a glaze, it is 1 part paint to 2 parts a glazing medium is what I do, generally speaking. And so here, just coming back in, because I thought, oh, I remember that I can come in with a little bit of alcohol on a paper towel or baby wipe, and I can highlight all that texture by using the alcohol. And so I wanted to get a little bit more brown down so that there would be something for it to be contrasting against. So you're going to see that right here, where this alcohol on my baby wipe, I'm going to wipe it over all that texture, and you're going to see it reappear. It's almost magical. It's super cool. It's like one of those, the little books that you get where you scratch it with a stick and a picture shows up. That's what it reminds me of. But it really was the saving grace on this at this point. I did struggle as I moved through the process to not lose the visibility of that texture again, but you'll again see that, and I'll try to remember to explain as I go along. My throat is getting tired and sore, so my apologies. My throat is feeling fine. I think it's just tired from being sick. So I did make sure that was nice and dry before I'm going on to the next step. I decided to come in again with that golden straw, and I'm just going to apply it here and there. I did add some water to it, and I'm just going to try to bring back some of that yellow. The background got pretty, I guess kind of muddy, just kind of muted out, and I didn't like that. I tend to go brighter, and so this was a little bit darker and moodier than I guess more just neutral. I'm not really a very neutral person in color, so. And then coming in again with the Hauser light green here and there as well, using my baby wipe to kind of move that around. That seemed to help. I still wasn't able to bring back much of the yellow at this point, but as you'll be able to see in the end pictures, the page just turned out beautiful. I couldn't have planned it better, which it generally goes that way for me. It just is usually like a train wreck as I'm moving through it. It feels like anyway. So there I was just playing with looking at my image and making sure that that's really what I wanted to go with on this, and then decided to add a piece of that tissue paper that I mentioned before that I had put in the background, and I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a focal point here. I did think that I could go in with a little bit of the black archival ink over that texture because I was really not liking that I couldn't really see it. But we do continue to work on that through the rest of the project, and we were able to see plenty of it. I was really happy with it. So mixed media is all about layers, and so sometimes you'll do something on one layer and it doesn't, in the end, it looks like, what was the point of doing that? But it is all part of the process, and for me it's part of the inspiration and how I move through a project, especially a mixed media kind of thing. So if that's not your jam, I totally get it. It's a very different way to create, and but it's very fun and very freeing too, because I feel like there's really not a right or a wrong when doing mixed media. So there I was just talking about that vintage paper that I pulled out, and it's talking about basically, is Jesus your king? And if you guys have been following me at all, you know that I am a believer. My relationship with Jesus is like breath to me, and so I can't really create without using it, and I can't really create without talking about it. So also with deep respect for everyone's belief system, because we're not all the same and our journeys are not all the same and all of those things. So but I have to be authentic to myself, because that's my heart, and I live and I create out of my heart. So I need to be authentic there. So here I'm just taking that focal image, and I was just wanting to have rough edges rather than it being square. And then I'm just inking it with my vintage photo archival ink here all the way around. I did lose a little bit of stuff, like I lost one of the bubbles in the picture and part of her doll, but we already talked about the doll. So, and that's the other thing with mixed media, is often when you're the creator of it, you know what you've put down, and you know why you put it down. You know what the story was. Even if you never see it again in the piece, you know what it meant, and you know the road that it took you to get to the end product. And that's, again, what I love about mixed media. So we did lose some of it, but in the end it's okay. So applying my papers here again, if I forgot to mention that, with my Liquitex fluid matte medium. And then I also pulled out a piece of the sheet paper, and I just did a really rough tear because I didn't want it to, I wanted it to be really organic, and I didn't think about it very long. I just kind of grabbed a piece, tore it, and then just decided where I wanted to put it in the center of the page there. So, and I'm thrilled with how it turned out. A little disappointed that I lost a lot of the tissue paper as well, but again, you just don't know until you start putting the layers down, and I don't want regrets when I'm creating. So I just create and I let it be what it's going to be. So I did feel like it was a little off balance with it having the sheet paper only on the one side. So I did grab another smaller piece. In retrospect, I wish I had torn that shorter, so that I wouldn't have lost all that music page that you see there on the far left side and towards the bottom. So if I had made that piece shorter, I would have been able to see more of the music page, but it's okay. And then doing the same, I'm gonna go ahead and put my focal image down with my fluid matte medium. And that is from Liquitex. And you can find a list of all of my mixed media supplies in the basic mixed media supplies list over on my blog, if you're interested in exploring some of those things. They're the basic supplies, the kind of things that I think you need to start off with if you're gonna go in that direction. So here I'm coming in again with my baby wipe and some more alcohol. And this is one of the places I was talking about where I wanted to be able to bring out that white again, that light, and create a little bit of contrast. Not only in the color overall on the spread, but also so that we could actually see that texture, because it really got lost under that layer of the golden straw and the green paint. So I was, again, you'll see in the final pictures, it couldn't have been better. Like, it's still pretty dull for my normal style, but it fits what I was creating. It fit the story, it fit the inspiration, it fit where I was in my heart and mind as I was creating it. So I was super happy with it. And I like to remind people that art journaling is personal, and it's just your journal. So you create, you have fun, you learn, you explore, you find things you like, and you discard things that you don't like in terms of technique and things like that. So what I was doing here is I was trying to find a way to bring out, again, that texture, trying one thing after another after another. I have a variety of Art Alchemy waxes. This is a wax called Rusty Red, and when I saw it in my drawer, I thought, wow, this would be perfect on this piece if I could make it work, because it matches the dress, the color of the dress under her pinafore. So I thought that was pretty cool and pretty nifty. So, and it worked out pretty well. I do a little bit of a dance back and forth, applying it, wiping some of it back, and that kind of thing, just to kind of get the look that I was going for. And off camera, I also did come around some of that three-dimensional texture that was the numbers created by the super heavy gesso and the stenciling, and I used my charcoal pencil and kind of did some shading around those that really made them have a little bit more dimension on the page as well. But this wax worked pretty darn well, and I am going to also, here in a moment, you'll see me going around all of the edges of the paper also with this wax. So, and again, the pictures will show you up close just how much that little bit of wax tied in the focal image with the background in a better way. So it didn't work really well going over the words. I tried the paintbrush, I tried my finger, and nothing was really working. At one point I just kind of had to breathe deep and say, you know, it's not what I really want. I'd like to be able to do this differently, but I just kept going with it, and I was again satisfied in the end. And there, just pulling out that that is goodness, what's it called? It's not tissue paper, it's like parchment paper that I like to put in between my pages to protect the page underneath. And then here off camera, I'm just trimming off some excess paper that's at the top of the page, just to clean that up a little bit. And then I'm going to go again, as I mentioned, around the whole page with my wax in the Rusty Red. Oh, here I was trying a little bit of gold, iridescent gold paint. That didn't work very well, because bringing in gold to this kind of toned piece just really wasn't the answer. So so here I am going to go ahead and do the wax around the whole page. And so just put a new piece of parchment paper in there again, just to protect the page behind it. And in the end, like, the feeling of this page with those two pages glued together was perfect. I like a really heavy duty, thick, stable paper for my mixed media, and this definitely fit the bill. So, and for some reason I'm going in again with my finger and it was working better, so I'm not sure what that was about. So yeah, we just try, see what happens. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming along. I know it was a little bit, maybe a little confusing. I don't know. Hopefully the voiceover will explain things, but you can hop on over to the blog at B.Rebornart.com. The link will be in the video description, and check out the inspiration for this piece. I do come in after I turn the camera off and I put on that word soulful. I actually stenciled that onto that piece of rice paper that I mentioned in the early part of the video that I had distressed. So thank you guys again so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.